Hey there, folks! We're here with a 4-color token ramp deck. You want to see how the deck fares? Gameplay is linked down in the description. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. We do a new deck every single week. Alright, let's get into the deck tech. Okay, so this was not the original deck that I previewed to my patrons. By the way, patrons get a preview video. I ended up previewing another deck, and then we just kind of talked and said, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And it turned out to be this totally different deck. And I think we're both happy with how it turned out. I have one patron. He's great. Thanks, Hazuko. You're awesome. Anyone else wants to be a patron? You'll be awesome, too. Join in our conversation, get to make things like this here and there. Alright, so our first card is Dark Salvation for double X in black. We got 2 copies, sorcery. And target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens on the battlefield. Then up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn for each zombie that player controls. So yeah, ramp, right? Ramp, Dark Salvation, Annoying Procession, that kind of stuff. It makes lots of zombies, kills a creature dead. Definitely useful in that regards. Or really early aggro. If really early aggro comes up, turn 3, we can go and get rid of a massive threat for 1. That 1 toughness. I mean, there's quite a few. White Weenie has its fair share of them, for example. Next up, 1 copy of Pull from Tomorrow. I don't want to see it too often, just happenstance sort of thing. When we start running dry in the late game, then we happen to draw it, and we can refuel ourselves. So for double blue and X, instant draw X cards, then discard a card. So refill of hand. Next up, Declaration in Stone for a white and a colorless sorcery. Exile target creature and all other creatures its controller controls with the same name as that creature. That player investigates for each non-token creature exiled this way. Early game interaction, hedge against aggro. That's mostly the long and the short of it. Just something quick removal to deal with the early threats. Just a little bit of hedge so that we can keep in the game long enough. Moving on, we have now Nissa Vastwood Seer, 3 mana, 2/2. When she comes into play, search for Forest and reveal it, put it into your hand. And whenever a land enters the battlefield, if you have 7 or more, you get to flip her into Nissa Sage Animist. +1 gets us more lands into play or draws us cards. -2 puts a 4/4 elemental onto the battlefield. It is legendary, so it doesn't really apply the rule, but it's ramp. We have to have ramp elements here too, so there is that. And her -7, well, I have yet to see her last longer than a turn. Usually she's a distraction for one of our bigger threats. And she's quite good at that. I mean, she gets us land so that we can keep hitting our land drops. That's the big part of it. And if we can get them to spend some pristine removal on it, something like Cast Out, Anguish Unmaking, that kind of stuff, then it's not going for our other big threats. If she sticks, great! We probably won. Moving on, Tireless Tracker for 3 mana, 3/2. And when it enters the battlefield under your control, investigate, put a clue into play, also great with Procession. And whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Tracker. We have more than one way to sacrifice clues. More than one way. We have plenty of ways, but Tireless Tracker was in here just so that we could have a card advantage game going. When we get into the big mana, then we can just start going nuts with Tireless Tracker. Usually Tracker is the smallest threat at that point in time. Okay, moving on, we have Gift of Paradise, 2 copies. So for 3 mana, an enchantment on land, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. An enchant land has tap, add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Duels likes to tap real weird. If it can help it, it likes to tap real weird, so you kind of got to get in the habit of manual tapping with this, but it will get you the mana you absolutely need, so that you can do the fun things you want. And since we're 4-color, Gift of Paradise is very, very ideal. Running Oketra the True, simply because when you hit big mana, she makes a lot of stuff. That's really all it is. She's just one of those bombshell threats, and we can usually maintain her fairly easily. So, for 4 mana, 3/6, double strike, indestructible, legendary god. Catcher the True can't attack or block unless you control 3 other creatures. At least. Sorry. And for 4 mana, she can make a 1/1 white warrior creature token with a vigilance. So we can start pumping out a bunch of tokens. Usually it's if we don't have an additional threat, like she's probably one of the lesser threats, but once she gets going, she is a big threat. Now the idea is that, say we don't have another major threat coming out at them, then at least we can throw down a Ketra and play a little back and forth with them until we draw what we need. And then, of course, Neue Procession, mentioned it several times, 4 mana enchantment with white involved. If an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. So double Ketra tokens, double Clue tokens, and double Zombie tokens, for example. Now we're moving on to Bounty of the Luxa. This is card advantage / ramp, however you want to look at it. And for 4 mana, Simic Colors. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all flood counters from Bounty of the Luxa. If no counters were removed this way, put a flood counter on Bounty of the Luxa and draw a card. Otherwise, add colorless, green, and blue to your mana pool. So that basically means, well, it starts with no counters, so you draw a card. If you can remove a counter, then you remove a counter and add the colors. And so it just alternates turns. One turn gives mana, the other turn gives you card draw. And it's nice to get 2 of them staggered, absolutely, to really keep a generic, constant feed of stuff coming your way. But it is ramp in one way, and it's card advantage in another way, and it's definitely useful to have down there when we need to just simply draw into the next big thing. Moving on, we have 1 copy of Languish. Our board wipes are more hedged in the white direction, so we're just having 1 single Languish because I felt that it was 1 board wipe shy, believe it or not. When you start seeing the other wipes, you'll go, that's a lot of board wipes. Yes, it is a lot of board wipes. The Languish, double black and 2 sorcery. All creatures get -4/-4 till end of turn. Good way to deal with indestructible stuff as well, and it's a good hedge for that. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Explosive Vegetation. So for 3 and a green, sorcery, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. That helps us get our colors kind of fixed out depending on what we have in our hand. We have a number of double colors. As you can see, double white is pretty heavy throughout the deck, and white is basically our second color if there was a second color. Yeah. And so we generally hedge for white and then blue and then black if we can help it. So things like Languish don't get cast too often, but we can gear towards it if we have to. And Explosive Vegetation will help get us there. Moving on, we have Gideon, ally of Zendikar, 2 white and 2 for loyalty Planeswalker. So this guy is intended to probably emblem 99% of the time, just to make our tokens a little bit more effective. But if we have Procession in play, then his 0 ability is quite impressive. His +1, sure, if that comes up to be a scenario, then and we land Gideon, then sure, we'll start +1ing and attacking. But I have yet to see that happen in this deck. So the +1 till end of turn, he becomes a 5/5, indestructible, and you prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. And his 0 puts a 2/2 White Knight ally creature token on the battlefield, and his -4 gives you an Anthem. So various effects, quite useful. Mostly the Anthem, like I said, to really just boost up the tokens. And then Angel Invention for double white and 3 is a 2/1 flying vigilance and lifelink, and has Fabricate 2 where it can put 2 servos into play or 2 +1/+1 counters on itself. Procession in play, obviously we get plenty of servo tokens. And her other ability is other creatures control get +1/+1. So combination of the two, definitely going to make some big stuff. That's usually where it sits. Also, I would like to add that if it has come up for me before, Oketra the True into a turn 5 Angel of Invention swinging with Oketra is pretty sweet. It's real sweet. Then we have Tamiyo's Journal for 5 mana, legendary artifact, and we are running the 1 copy only. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate to put a clue code token into play. And we can tap and sacrifice 3 clues, search your library for a card. We tutor for whatever we want and put it into our hand. And that can get a number of things. If we need a clutch board wipe, then Tamiyo's Journal will eventually get there. If we have some time, ideally, we might want an Annoying Procession so that we're doubling our clue production. So that Tamiyo's Journal can go grab Anointed Procession so that we're tutoring every turn. Check out the gameplay. It happens. Next up, Planar Outburst for 2 white and 3 sorcery. Destroy all non-land creatures. Yep, we just need a board wipe. And for Awaken 4, we can pay 8 mana and put 4 +1/+1 counters on a land, and becomes an elemental 0/0 elemental creature with haste and still a land. So we can board wipe, swing out a planeswalker if we need to, that kind of thing. Keep them in check if we need to. Certain ones are problematic, others not necessarily. We play a different game and not every planeswalker is quite useful. So yeah, only certain ones are really a problem, so this is the answer. And then, speaking of answers to planeswalkers, Tragic Arrogance for 2 white and 3 sorcery. For each player, you choose from among the permanents a player controls an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker. Then each player sacrifices all the other non-land permanents he or she controls. So basically, we get to go around the board picking one of each type on each player's side. And then everything else dies. So, you know, we play against Super Friends, and they got like 3 or 4 planeswalkers out, and they're like, yeah, we got this. And then we're like, yeah, we got this. And so we just clean up their mess, leave them with the least impactful planeswalker to our game, and resume from there. And then we have Rise from the Tides. This was kind of where we got the idea. We're like, Ramp has a lot of instants and sorceries to do the ramp. Like, the ramp cards are instants and sorcery, so Rise from the Tides actually makes sense. And that's where we started this whole idea, I think. So, for blue and 5 mana sorcery, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token on the battlefield tap for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. And you may notice we have a few of them here. It's kind of a mixed bucket here, but we do have our fair share of them, and it comes up. I would cut it if it weren't for the fact that what I would love to have more in here, Dark Salvation. 4 copies, absolutely. I would love 4 copies of Dark Salvation. I'd drop Rise from the Tides, honestly. The tapped nature of these zombies is the painful part. Because it feels like win more, but whatever. Like I said, Dark Salvation is so much better, and it's on curve, like on theme. We can, depending on how our mana's going, maybe we have a lot of instants and sorceries, but less mana to activate on them, so we can hit Rise from the Tides, and then we can follow up with the Dark Salvation. Say they drop an Ulamog. Let's just say they drop an Ulamog. And we have all those instants and sorceries. We can drop a whole bunch of zombies, then we can Dark Salvo for whatever's left over, and probably get an easy 10-point swing on that idiot and get him dropped. So, let's move on to... That's why it's still in here, by the way. Let's move on to Nissa's Renewal for 6 mana, one of them being green. Sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library and you gain 7 life. Keeps us in the game versus aggro. You may notice the early game has the Gift of Paradise, the early removal versus the critical threats. And so then that lasts us into the next step where we get Nissa's Renewal down, and then hopefully into something that impacts their board to try and get them to to rage quit because aggro. Once you drop the single big threat, it's usually done. But anyways, yeah, it ramps us into all our colors so that maybe we have much more freedom with what we're doing. Yeah, basically that. All right, moving on. We have 2 copies of Sandworm Convergence for 8 mana. 2 of them being green. Enchantment. Creatures with flying can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of your end step, create a 5/5 green worm creature token. So, Possession is pretty good with this. And it's also good versus Thopter decks. It's good versus Spirits. It's good versus Ormondal. Yeah, it's good versus a whole bunch. It's also good versus Glorybringer if you want to get up to that Glorybringer state. It'll definitely clear versus Glorybringer as well. And hopefully you're ramping on time. You know, if things are going well, you're ramping on time with a Glorybringer to try and get that out there. Alright, next is Spring to Mind. So, Spring side, 2 and a green sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it on the battlefield tapped in, shuffle your library. This is where I took the mana dorks out and decided to go with the not fatal push targets of Spring and Gift of Paradise to try and just kind of find that middle ground. Now, I'd hedge more to Gift of Paradise if it weren't for Mind. So, Mind, 2 blue and 4. Draw 2 cards, Aftermath, once it's in your graveyard after you've cast Spring. Then, yes, you can Mind later. And draw 2 additional cards in your late game so that you can find your threats to try and close out the game. So that's it for the non-land cards. We have 3 plains, 2 islands, 2 swamps, 6 forests, 2 Canopy Vista, 2 Woodland Cemetery, 2 Hinterland Harbor, and 2 Sun Petal Grove, and 4 Evolving Wilds. The way I'm working with the non-basics here, we're basically running these 2 lands. We're running everything. Notice they're all green. So our primary color of green, we will always get green mana. That's the idea. And since our secondary color is white, that is the one I chose. Well, basically, it's the only one you can choose, but it happened to work out that way. That's also why I'm running less Languish, less black colors, and more of the white board wipes. I wanted to put red in here, and you can absolutely do a 5-color token stack here. Red has some things that can fill in some holes if you're interested. You can look at that particular category. It has some neat stuff. So, yeah, this is the one that it ties with all of these. It works well with these so that you're running untapped mana as much as possible. The Evolving Wilds will get you your off-color mana, or maybe your forest if you only have off-color mana in hand. So, forest, green mana, very easy to pull off. It's just, you got to get to that mana count so you can get a ramp spell off and move into the next step. Gift of Paradise, go away, that. Gift of Paradise, definitely good for cleaning up the double color mana stuff so that you can pull off your Languish without effort. You can pull off your Gideon Angel Invention, all of these, without effort. Because we do have our fair share of them. Sandworm Convergence really doesn't count, but I mean, if you've got a single green and you're ramping heavily into every single other color, you might not actually have your second forest yet. So, it's something to keep in mind. So, again, gameplay is linked down in the description. You want to see the deck in action. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.